Howdy.
Howdy,
What's your name?
my name is Rob Booth.
Rob. So what do you build, Rob?
A little bit of everything, mainly an aircraft guy, but I've been branching out.
All right. And where are you from?
I am living just outside of Kerrville, Texas right now.
All right.
And
And
from San Antonio originally.
cool. And your talk, what is going to be about?
I'll be demonstrating the Liquitex ink pre-shading technique.
All right.
I learned about this out of a book that I bought from Chris Sieber up in Canada, where he built an F-14, and this is one of the, published a book about it, and this is one of the techniques that he used.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for that, and see you around.
Okay, thanks. To impart some color differentiation in the grays. The same thing would be applicable to an armor project. If you want to model the look of the olive drab on something, you can use it before multi-tone camouflage schemes, because with the technique, the idea is it shows through the color coats that you put on. Now there's a couple of things about it that are particular, that you can't just go willy-nilly using anything. You have to stick to the formula. So the formula is, you use, for this particular kit, I used Tamiya Gray Primer, which is the undercoat of what's on here. So this has gone through the first treatment. Okay, the first treatment is white ink. So this is Liquitex ink. It's an acrylic ink. It's very thin. It's basically like acrylic paint with a heavy flow enhancer or something in it, but mainly water and pigment. So it's very, very heavily pigmented. It comes in an assortment of colors, black and white, obviously, but then you also have the primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, and then they also give you a burnt sienna, dark brown, basically. Okay, and you can mix up any color you want from within this. So the first thing you do is, when your primer is dry, you give it a light buffing or something to scuff up the finish, and then you take this white ink, and I'll try to demo as I go along here. Where's my blank one? Yeah. Okay, so this is just Tamiya primer that's on here now. The first step is you take Tamiya X20 thinner, the acrylic Tamiya thinner, squirt it into a little container like this, nice flat brush, and imagine you can work on any size thing here you want, but it's best to work in smaller segments, nothing bigger than, say, this wing, because it'll dry up on you real quick. So you flood coat the surface. And you just take an old brush, nasty old brush, and you get the white. And in Chris's book, he floods it. I found that harder to work with, so I just dab it on like this to try to control the amount of the white a little bit. Go to Hobby Lobby and buy yourself some stippling brushes. They sometimes call them deerfoot. Small one, there's a large one. These are natural bristles. These were some I tried to make from some synthetic bristles. They work okay, but the natural ones are better. It's hard to get a good straight cut on these. So anyway, see how it's starting to kind of pool out, and the color starting to disperse in the thinner. And these fans are on, so it's starting to dry. So what you do is you take the stippling brush and you start working the inks in, like so. It's a little light, so the next time I do this, I'm going to try doing this in reverse order and do the black first and then the white over the black, and I think you'll get more contrast out of it. But I had already started this one.
And the brush is dry.
The brush is basically dry. Now I'll get to some, I wouldn't call them advanced techniques, but some further work on them. So you can see how that's starting to kind of provide some spottiness to the white that's in there, but you're still seeing the gray show through. Okay, so that's kind of getting like, that's what it looks like when it's dry. All right, so once it's dry, and you can use a hair dryer as a quick way to make it dry so you can move along more quickly. The next step is to take a lacquer-based clear. Do not use an acrylic-based clear because you're going to repeat this process. And if you hit the acrylic-based clear with this, the whole thing just turns to mush. So this is Tamiya Clear semi-gloss lacquer paint that's been sprayed over top of the white. Okay. So the next step is, after you've put that clear coat on, Chris had a formula, but I played around with it until I just kind of play it by ear here. You don't use black. You make a warm gray, which only takes a couple of drops. I usually do 10 to 2, 10 to 3 to come up with this gray. Darker than I want. You'll find that these things are very forgiving.
The inks.
Yeah. They're very easy to work with. Don't spill them on your wife's tablecloth or clothes or anything like that, though.
She's not so easy to work with.
Right. and this is not so easy to come out. Okay, so there's the gray. Got our old brush again, and like I say, this has been oversprayed with the clear lacquer to seal that first layer. So you're gonna do the wash. The moment of truth here.
What do you clean your brush just with?
This is alcohol.
Okay.
91 proof or
96.
91% isopropyl. You don't want to use that. That's too strong. You can clean the brush with it, but don't try to do this with it. I mean, I suppose you could play around with some of the mixtures because the alcohol would act as a drying agent, makes it dry faster. Okay, so now I'm putting the darker segment to this. So you can see it starts to spread into that Tamiya thinner, and the Tamiya thinner is what keeps it wet. And I've found that, and we may have to do that with this fan over here, is that sometimes I'll have to dip this stippling brush in there a little bit to kind of reactivate the thinner so that I can get more of a contrast out of it. The other thing is, on an airframe, if you're doing aircraft, you want to try to work it in the direction of the airflow. Theoretically, I mean,
Rob, where did you get the inks?
I ordered the inks off of Amazon.
Okay.
I understand that Hobby Lobby may carry them here and there, but I haven't found them in Hobby Lobby. Okay, so you see you start to get some dark spots in there, and you want a lot of contrast. I may have made this a little lighter than I really want. But you can see when you put a little thinner on the stippling brush, it tends to make it dissipate even a little bit more. Okay, now when you finish with this coat, the black pigment obviously is going to have more to it than the white. So you may find that this builds up a little bit and you get some gnarliness to the finish. After this is completely dry, we've seen these a lot lately for spraying through and sanding and all that stuff. But you just take this, you don't want a real harsh one, you want a fairly mild scouring pad, and just, you know, rub across the finish, and it'll take down some of those high spots. If that doesn't get it back smooth enough for what you want, a 2000 grit sanding stick, and just lightly, because you'll go right through it, just very lightly knock the tops down, and you find that gives it even more of a dimension sometimes, where you get little pits of different colors here and there. It's an interesting technique to play with. Okay, so you got that, and then once you get once this is dark, you don't have to clear coat this. You go straight with your lacquer finish. And these are Tamiya lacquers. I cut this generally 2 parts thinner to 1 part paint, so it's a very thin mix. And airbrush very methodically, you know, just dust it on it first, because with the Mr. Leveling Thinner in it levels out real quickly, and you want to leave just enough that you see the effect through the paint. Okay, and so this wing has been finished and it's ready to clear coat for decals. So there'll be a gloss coat that goes over this, and then you'll decal it, and after your decals are on, you put an absolute flat finish clear coat over top of that, and this is what you end up with. And so if you want to get a little closer look, let me take the seats out here because they'll fall out.
And the gray paint is basically almost like a pastel. I mean, almost like a semi-transparent.
It's almost opaque. Very thin coats, and you just keep playing with it. But it's easy to. I actually think I probably went a little too far on the upper surface of this wing. But again, when you clear coat this, it's funny. It provides a depth to the finish that comes through even the flat coat, and this is what you end up getting. I thought I had overdone it on this, but I love the effect that it came out with. So you can use this and play with it, and you can have as dirty of a finish as you want, or you can have it very, very subdued. So this is what it ends up with before you decal it. And then this is what ends up as the finished product. This is dark ghost gray, and then the underside is light ghost gray. When you look at it from that perspective, it doesn't really look like there's much difference in the two different grays. But when you turn it over and look at it in the light, you can see that the bottom is quite a bit lighter than the top.
And you apply the technique on the whole airframe. Okay.
And I did it on the stores as well. And so, I mean, you want to pass some more of these around. The vertical stabilizers are ready for the clear coat.
How do you deal with the fuselage where it's more of a vertical or rounded parts? Can you get it to work on that?
Work in smaller areas, and you need to be working on the flat part of things. So like when you start working on the fuselage, it's round obviously, so you kind of got to work it in quarters as you turn it over.
Any panel lining?
Well, the panel line, and I can demo this panel lining another time, but Mike was asking me before. The way I did the panel lines on this one was before I got to the final dull coat, I took the same ink, this black ink, and I put it in anybody go to drafting school to be an architect? You remember the Conor Rapidor pens or Mars technical pens? I found a set of those on eBay for nothing. So I bought them, and I put this black ink in the finest point of the technical pens, and I just followed the kit panel lines with that, and it went in there. And I did lip out a couple of times, and again, you just let it dry, and then you take your paint and just touch it, and this paint is good enough that it flattens out that you never see your touch up. As long as it's just a little slip. If you go all the way across the wing, you're in trouble. But that's the other thing is on panel lines. If you're in doubt to the depth of that panel line as to whether you can do that or not, take a scriber and go over it all again and deepen them a little bit, because it helps keep that pen inside the deal. Now you could probably do the same thing. You get the same effect on this if you used black oil paint and turpenoid, and you touch it and it flows through like that. This stuff is, I'm going to say, it's a little heavier bodied than that, so it gets much crisper. Again, if I was going to do it again, I'd mix a dark gray to do the panel lines, because my feeling is that's a little more stark than I wanted it to be. But
I would think
overall, for a first effort, I was pretty happy with the way it turned
I think
out.
that's a little more forgiving too than the oil paint with the turpenoid as well. So easier to clean.
Depends on how you use it. Yeah, this cleans up with water, as long as you get it quick enough.
Yeah.
Alcohol, if you don't, alcohol cut it all the way back.
Really nice.
So this is it's the Hasegawa kit, and I bought a little bit of aftermarket for it. I'm doing this for Adam David Stevenson's group build for the Nats this summer. He's doing the F-14 group build. The decals are for VF. Can't remember, 201, I think, which was based at Fort Worth at the Joint Reserve Base there. This was the last reserve Tomcat squadron. And the picture's inaccurate because it shows a D model. This is an A model. This will be an A model in the tactical paint scheme. So these came from the last time that the Nats were in Texas, up in Dallas in 2000. So these were 24-year-old decals.
Thank you very
Questions?
much for that. Very nice.
Oh, very nice work. Well done.
Practice.
Practice.
Yes, practice.
Yeah, I mean, it cleans up with water, so it's very forgiving. Unless you let it set, then it's really hard to get
If you
out.
wanted to
But-
use this on, let's say, World War II Navy, planes, like Hellcats or something.
like medium blue,
Tricolor.
the tricolor scheme.
But where the sea environment's so cruel to them, you could horse that effect and get away with murder on that.
Right. Well, you could use the same technique under that tritone
more
scheme, even
exaggerated.
under the white.
Sure.
Okay, and you could even play a little bit with the color and put some blue tint in it to make it even deeper. So this is my new favorite thing in models.
Very cool.
And like I said, don't know if I said it before the beginning of this, but I did some experimenting with the burnt sienna on a tank model, and you kind of get that same effect under an olive drab.
This is actually our technique. Less the drying time.
Right.
Right? So laying down a wash and then doing another one and then doing just like it's very very
Any
nice.
questions? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. It matches the reference I was given. My 5-year-old.